Wilberforce said, "I must secure more time for private devotions. I have been living far too public." Wow. He went on to say, "The shortening of devotion starves the soul, and the soul grows lean and faint. I've been keeping too late hours, living far too public." It was E.M. Bounds who said, apostasy begins in the prayer closet. It was George Mueller who said, you have to live in a spirit of prayer. He said, I pray as I walk, and I pray when I lie down, and I pray when I rise up, and the answers are always coming. We've talked about the process overview. We've talked about mission and vision. Now let's talk about you, the mentor. Thomas Hooker said, prayer is my chief work, and it is the means by which I carry on the rest. Let me tell you, if you are going to take on the extraordinary task of facilitating learning with other prayer leaders, a dozen churches, thousands of people that could be impacted. My dear brother, my dear sister, prayer has to be your chief work, and it will be the only means by which you carry on the rest. Harold Lindsell, the great evangelical, said it more bluntly. He said, prayerlessness is sin. E.M. Bounds says, those who know God's best are the richest and most powerful in prayer. Little acquaintance with God, and there's strangeness and coldness. And it makes prayer a rare and feeble thing. Listen, as a mentor of other prayer leaders, and potentially even pastors, if you do nothing else other than model a life of prayer and cultivate a climate of prayer among those leaders and in those churches, you will be well on your way to success as a prayer leadership mentor, and we in the Church of God will be blessed to have you. Oh God, let this be the way it is. But there are some practical things. What are the qualities desired in someone who is leading a prayer leadership process, a prayer leadership mentor? Number one, you have to be teachable yourself. You have to be ready to learn and able to teach others. Paul learned from Barnabas, and then he taught Timothy, and then he encouraged Timothy to teach others. This is about learning. There are no prayer experts. If you posture as a prayer expert in this group that you're leading, you will do it against my counsel and my advice. I tell you, I've been involved in the prayer movement for 20 years, written a number of books, been all over the world teaching on it. I am no prayer expert. Nobody is. If you talk to God and get good at it, then you've missed the point. It's not about technique. It's always about relationship. Number two, here's what you've got to become. You've got to become a prayer role model. Not only in your personal prayer life, but in prayer leadership. Richard Burr, in his book, Developing Your Secret Closet of Prayer, says, a dynamic praying church is built from the inside out. I love this. He talks about 4 levels of prayer. Now these are not the 4 dimensions that we talk about, but these are 4 levels in 2 of our dimensions. Number 1, he says the first level is secret prayer, the prayer closet, personal prayer. The second level is family prayer, couples praying together, fathers and mothers praying with their children. The third level are small groups of prayer outside the home. A man joining with other men who are praying, a woman being a part of a prayer group, you being a part of a prayer group at your work, you're being a part of a prayer group at your church. And then the fourth level is a church that's praying. a congregation that's praying. That's what we call praying homes and a praying church. And to that, to get our 4 dimensions, we add pay special attention to those intercessors and then turn it all outward. Prayer evangelism. Here's the third thing you have to become. You have to become a peer leader. A peer leader. Humble before others, honest before God about yourself, and loyal to the program's objectives. You have to lead with humility, integrity, no pretense. You lead among other leaders. This program can't afford lone rangers. You are stewarding a process with other churches. You have to be engaged with me, engaged with that state leader in order to adequately serve those churches. Spurgeon used to say that we pray best from our depths, that the soul had to get low enough to get leverage. What a line. And then he said we could plead with God. He's talking about humility. The only way this will work is that all of us have to make a mad rush for the back of the line. Evan Roberts, who was involved in the Welsh revival, would pray, lower, God, take me lower, lower. Number 4, you've got to be, as a mentor, committed to others. You can't be toxic. We can't afford user relationships in this process. We can't afford power-hungry leaders. We can't afford, my group is doing better than your group. We can't afford abusive relationships. In Philippians 2, Paul writes to that church and he talks about consolation. He talks about the comfort of love. He talks about the fellowship of the Spirit. And with that, he said, comes affection for one another and mercy. He's talking about the intangibles. See, so often in a prayer process, prayer program, we're talking about praxis, the model, step 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we forget the intangibles, we'll leave out the best part. Philippians, you recall, is that epistle with the joint themes of fellowship, koinonia, and joy, the relational, one accord, one mind. Here's what he says in Philippians 2, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem the other better than themselves. That's the kind of environment we want to create around these tables. Paul says, let each look out not only for your own interest, but for the interest of others. Interestingly enough, the word others is heteros, the different one. You may have some eccentrics at the table. You know what? In the end, they may make an amazing contribution to the table. Don't allow lines to be drawn. Them and us. Refuse to let it happen. Create a climate of love. Embrace everyone who wants to learn about the prayer process. Number 5, we're looking for open, transparent leaders who create a culture for growth. And this is one in which failures and setbacks are celebrated. It's the opportunity to learn, to lean more heavily on God, to deepen resolve and determination. Someone says prayer that keeps the eyes of the group not on the program, not on the problems, but on the possibilities, on God Himself. That's the best kind of praying. Number 6, what we're looking for are facilitators, teachers who facilitate peer learning, who themselves are willing and able to learn from others. F.B. Meyer says, fall on your knees and grow. And then number 7, you want to affirm. You got to believe in the potential of others. You got to see their flaws. You got to see beyond them the fantastic possibilities. Remember what Albert Einstein's third grade teacher said? Albert, you will never amount to anything. Who knows? Who knows? Sitting at the table in one of your groups may be someone who goes on to make an incredible difference. D.L. Moody, you have to remember, he couldn't qualify for church membership. He was turned down, but his ministry lives after his death. He had a disdain for counting converts. Nobody knows how many he influenced to follow Christ. In just one crusade, 10,000 people responded. Who knows the power of one potential prayer leader at your table? Number 8, here's what you do. You envision. You help those prayer leaders define a dream. You call it out of them. And you create the context in which they call it out of one another. Margaret Gibbs said, our goal in prayer is to move from a focus on things that break our hearts to things that break God's heart. Number 9, to do this, you've got to be credible. You've got to be worthy as a leader. You've got to be successful in the eyes of others. You've got to have some relational collateral to launch this group. And if you do your best, if you do your homework, if you do due diligence, we're going to give you enough material and keep you ahead of them, you'll gain credibility. Number 10, you need to be sincere. No hidden agenda. No hidden agenda. Here's what you're looking for in the people you're helping. Number 1, you want them to love God. And if they love God, they'll love prayer. They'll evidence dependence upon God. And you want in this process to ask God to give you a good relationship with them. And encourage them to pray that healthy relationships will develop in the whole group. Number 2, they can't be lazy. They've got to invest in the process. They've got to concentrate on developing themselves and their own prayer leadership team toward the potential. They can't expect you as the mentor or the group to do the hard work for them. Number 3, they have to be loyal members of the group. They have to demonstrate a healthy loyalty, not only to you, not just to a process where they're learning, that's selfish, but to the group itself, because that's where the real payoff will come. It'll be when somebody comes into your meeting and they have exploded because they just got it. And something is beginning to happen in that church. And the loyalty to one another, well, that's number 4. We're going to learn. We're going to be open, eager to grow and learn from one another. So every connection at these tables, every connection is an opportunity to be a sincere learner and a teacher. Number 5, you got to have people who like others and they're focused on their development. You've got to encourage your churches to begin to go to each connection meeting, whether it's the quarterly meeting where all the churches come together, or whether it's the quarterly meeting where they're meeting in triads and quads. They need to go to that connection with a focus on helping somebody else in the group. Number 6, everybody has to lower themselves. Everybody has to be humble. You go to each connection meeting with humility, ready to submit to analysis, objective assessment, to see blind spots, to see yourself and your process through the eyes of others. We need some tough love going on to get us past superficial prayer programs into things that will change the culture of our churches. Number 7, you need to look for opportunities to contribute. Again, go to each connection meeting willing, ready to make a contribution to the vision of others. Here's what you as a mentor, here's what you're doing. The first goal of the mentoring group is to facilitate learning. In the strictest sense, the mentor is not a teacher. In other words, this is not about information, or at least it's not about information alone, not in the traditional content exchange. The notes get from the instructor's notepad to the student's notepad in an hour of lecture. No, this learning is at the heart of this group. And it's more than content, because everybody here is a learner. God has called His church globally into the most massive prayer movement ever seen since the first century. It is on the heart of God to make His church a praying church. Listen, prayer centers are springing up everywhere. Prayer drives, prayer missions, prayer walks are occurring widely, spontaneously. There are groups that have driven from Miami to Maine, recently one from San Diego to Brownsville, Texas, right near the border because of all the border dissension. We've walked a trail of tears. We've walked the path that Sherman burned. We've prayed the four corners. There'll be a flyover in a few weeks at the National Day of Prayer over every capital with people praying from the air above it. Crazy, wonderful things are happening in the area of prayer. 24/7 prayer processes are becoming common. Prayer gatherings are drawing hundreds, tens of thousands. Here in America, we're behind. We're playing catch up. The parade has started in other parts of the world, and our float isn't even decorated yet.